Thank you.
Hello, hello. I want to welcome all of you to another hour of truth, information, knowledge, and mystery. Some of the stuff that you're hard pressed to find anywhere else except here on the Universal Consciousness Show. My name is Aage, and I'm one of the hosts. I'm here in the southwest of the United States, and my co host Diana is over in Germany, but she is not going to be able to be with us today because she had a previous arrangement, an engagement to be to. So she'll be back next week. And for those of you that want to listen to this show later and take notes, you can find it in many different places on Facebook, many other places like the rest of the social media. And also, I archived the shows on 2 different websites, and I will give you to them now. So that is one of them is www.aage-nost.com. So that is www.myfirstname-mylastname.com. And look under blogs on mystery, and there you will find the shows. And I also on the have them on the other website, that is www.universal-consciousness-show.com. And you may want to keep a pen and some paper handy because sometimes you can hear stuff that maybe you want to write down. You know, that's known to happen. So anyway, excuse me. And if you know somebody that have no access to the computer right now, but they would like to listen anyway, call them and give them this phone number. They can call in and listen live. That is 701 719 904. And also you should subscribe to our YouTube channel where we are streaming live right now. And that YouTube channel is Universal Consciousness Show. And also join us on Facebook in the group for the radio show. That is the Universal Consciousness Show. We have not promoted that thing very much at all, actually, hardly ever, but we're going to start doing it now. So join us there also in that group on the on Facebook, the Universal Consciousness Show. You will also find our video documentary in my books there, and on the new website, the Universal Consciousness Show also. And today or tonight, this evening, this morning, all depending on where you are in the world, we are going to be talking to a very interesting gentleman. Has a phenomenal story. And the gentleman's name is Adam Miller. He is a healer, and he is right here in Tucson, and we have become good friends, and we met, and he is a healer, yes. And the thing about it is that science is now starting to back up what is going on in the healing practices. Adam Miller is a spiritual healer, an author, and a personal healing coach. Back in 1977, when he was a rising figure skating star, he had a very life-changing near-death experience. This experience was brought on by plain and simple, by him getting sick with double pneumonia and having 109 degrees of fever. You know, you can die from that. And he did. During the time that he was gone, he had a very profound out-of-body experience. And we're going to talk about what he saw and experienced there. It lasted a long time, and it was very detailed. And coming up, we will get into some of those details. What he saw on the other side. He saw some highly spiritual places, places of learning, and he met with some very spiritual and holy entities. He was able to stay with them and learn from them, from some amazing truths about universal law, healing, and successful living. The results of this event led Adam down the path as a spiritual healing and healing coach, including to teach others how to become healers. He has been teaching this now and also touching people's lives and helping people for over 40 years. The spiritual work Adam does transforms lives, bodies, hearts, and minds of those people seeking assistance all over the world, because some of the work he does can also be done on the telephone. He discovered the source of life within us and is able to help people tap into that source of life within us, because this source is so much greater and so much more powerful than any illness or problem that we think we may have. And this goes a long way. This form of healing now is well supported by science. And there will be a day when both this kind of healing and medical science as we know it in the hospitals gonna live under one roof. Now, quantum physics explaining exactly how healing can happen. Medical science is now starting to show also that prayer and healing actually works. And they have many experiments to speak to that effect, even at a distance. And this is more and more accepted. In fact, here in Tucson, there is a hospital that allows people coming in and practice Reiki with patients. The Christians also have this concept they call the laying of hands. It's not necessarily the hands that is important, it's the mind behind the hands that taps into that universal force or power and the energy behind it that heals. There is a book out there that shows many medical experience that proves that healing actually works. And this book's the title of the book is Healing Words and Prayer is Good Medicine. In one of the incidents they talk about is where somebody had a tumor about the size of a fist, and they were assembled around the bed and they did the healing practice, and the tumor shrunk 39%. How can you argue with that? And then there is this video coming out of China where there were, I think it was 4 or 5 Chinese healers standing around the bed of someone that had a tumor that was slightly smaller than a fist. And they were chanting as they were putting the energy into the tumor. And they were saying something like, it is gone, it is gone, it is gone, of course in Chinese. And it was all on TV there. There was on the left side of the screen, they had a picture of the tumor the way it was originally. On the right side, you could see it in real time. And as they spent in 3 minutes of these healers standing there doing this, you could see the tumor shrinking down and disappearing right on the screen. So, do I need to repeat myself? This kind of healing works, and that is what Adam Miller is able to tap into and what he is doing with people here, and that is why it's so effective. He most often succeeds with the really difficult cases where the doctors give up on people and send them home, to get their affairs in order. So listen really close. And even if you're perfectly healthy as a horse, I don't know if all horses are all that healthy, but if you're perfectly healthy, you may have a relative that isn't. keep them in mind when you listen, because this you need to hear. And now, without any more jabber on my part, I want to welcome Adam Miller to the show. Hello, Adam.
Well, hello, sir. How are you today?
Oh, it must be good. Nobody's complaining. Yeah, I'm so glad that we finally could get on here. I think we've been booked for about 2 months, and now finally we are here.
Yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk about, what I do and some of the things that have happened during the job.
Yeah, and I tell you, in order for people to understand how this came about for you, how you were an up and aspiring figure skater. And you were getting medals. You were really going somewhere with that. And then you ended up as a healer. How did that happen? There's a story behind this, and please let us know.
So I started figure skating when I was 2 years old, and I went up through the ranks up into senior level, and I did well, and I could do 7 triples, backflip, double axel. Those jumps aren't so complicated in today's world, but back in the 60s and 70s, it was quite something then. And I felt that, my progress was really good, except, I really ignored my body. And I think that, a lot of high-end athletes, such as the ones on the Olympics right now, have a tendency to do. I have a lot of those individuals as clients, and they suffer a lot of injuries. I know I did. I had over 400 different breaks throughout my body from falling, and
Man, wow,
37 operations, and hundreds of times in the hospital. So, figure skating is really it's really a rough way to go.
man, oh man, you almost have to be a masochist to keep doing that.
Yeah, well, it's not really something that I would tell my children to do, probably.
No.
But then my older son, who's a 6-year-old, wants to be a race car driver, so he's not much less
Oh boy,
crazy in the head than
yeah.
I was. I feel like at this point maybe we should talk about what happened and how I became that way, and I can tell the story.
Yeah, please do.
So it was 1977, and I was 18 years old, and I had overskated. I had been sick for probably 6 months. First single pneumonia, then double pneumonia. Then both lungs were filled up with fluid, and so I went to do a jump one day, and the world pretty much went black. And when I woke up, I was in the hospital, and they informed me that I had fluid in both lungs, pretty much 9/10 full, and my fever was 105. So they dumped me in a vat of ice, and that's what they did back then. And when they took me out of the ice, the fever went up to 109. So at that point, I didn't see a tunnel. There were no other types of things happening as far as that I could tell that I had died. I was just in a place that was completely white. There was a gentleman standing there. He was about 6 feet tall. He had a beard, and he was beautiful in stature, and he was different. He had violet eyes, and I knew, Aage, I wasn't in Kansas anymore.
Yeah.
So he said that we would be going to a place where there would be some individuals that would explain what's going on. And the next thing I knew, we were just there. And there were these stairs in front of this very large building. And he asked me to walk up the stairs and watch what happened. So as I was walking up the stairs, each stair lit up in millions and millions of tiny little stars. It was absolutely beautiful, just breathtaking. When I got to the top of the stairs, I looked down at him and I asked him, what was that exactly? And he said that the stairs were acting as a mirror, and they were reflecting the essence and the material that I was made of. So then he said to me, go ahead and go into the building, and the individuals will explain what's going on. When I entered the building, I got, well, my neck shock, because the whole entire building was full of angels, angelic hosts. There were the small pixie angels, maybe 6 or 7 inches tall. There were the seraphim angels that were more humanesque, maybe 6 feet tall. And there were the mighty archangels that were 400 or 500 feet tall, because the building was huge. And they were actually guarding the 4 corners of the inside of this sacred place. There was a podium at the end of the building in which there was a woman at the corner closest to me, and she motioned me over. And as I got closer to her, I realized that she was really, truly a fantastic being, because she had a wonderful halo above her head. When I finally got close enough so I could hear her, she told me that her name was Mother Mary, as in Jesus' mother. Next to her, there was a man named Saint Germain. There was Kuan Yin, Buddha, and many others. She explained to me that the building that I was in was called the place of change, where all humans, when they are either entering or exiting a body, come. She explained that the individuals that she was seated with were called the Holy Council, and that I was there because I was in a kind of transition, you might say. And she told me that all humans, before they come to the earth plane, they write an agreement. And so she asked me, would I like to see that agreement? And of course, I was absolutely thrilled. And she handed it to me. At the top of the agreement, it said Life's Agreement. And it said by Adam Miller, and it said what planet I would go to, and who my parents would be, and my girlfriends, my skating career, my friends, and I read down through it, and it was quite detailed. However, when I got to the bottom of it, I realized it was only 18 years long. And then I realized, of course, that I had died. I asked her about this, and she said, no, you're kind of in a suspension at the moment, or transition. Therefore, we would like to talk to you about some possible options that you might want to think about doing. One of those is that you could meet here in the place of change with an individual that you've known in another lifetime, actually, and you would make an agreement between you and this individual that you would become their spirit guide. And so what that means is that you would have to give up the body you're in. You would write the agreement with this individual. Then you would go back to the earth plane as their spirit guide, and they would be born into a human body, and you would continue to follow and protect them throughout their life. That's the first choice. The second choice is that you could go to what's called the Universal College. You can study spiritualism, you can study the etheric realm, mathematics, etc. Again, you would have to give up your physical body in order to go to this place. The third option that you could possibly do is you could go to the Universal College for a period of 2 weeks and learn some very important universal law. And so I thought about these 3 choices for a very long time. And what I realized is I was only 18 years old, and I did not want to leave my mother at that time. So I went to the college. It was a very interesting place. I'll give you one of the scenes there. There were about 2 million souls there, and there was a professor standing on a stage like any other college, except there was about 2 million souls. So they were from every possible planet you can imagine. It was extremely interesting. And I did graduate from the course there. Course is there, and I returned to the place of change as agreed. And when I got there, Mary told me it was time to go back. After that happened, I found myself in the bed in the hospital where I had left. And standing at the foot of my bed was the man I told you about in the beginning of the story. He then informed me that he was Jesus the Christ, and that him and the other, they call themselves the Holy Ones, have now taken away the veil that's between myself and themselves, which means I not only see the physical world, but I also see the entire spiritual world pretty much 24/7. So I've been like that now for 41 years, obviously, since this event. And so to give you just a little bit of information after that, I did walk out of the hospital in about 7 days, which of course is completely a miracle. From dead, that's impossible. And I went in a skating show in Europe after that. And all of a sudden I started seeing color and various types of shapes. And pretty soon I could see people like Saint Germain, Kuan Yin, Buddha, etc. They started, giving me all kinds of advice and various things like that. And then I found myself just placing my hands on some of the kids in the skating show who had bumps, bruises, alcoholism, drug addiction, venereal disease, various things that had to do with show business. And I continued to do that for 11 years. So I got out of the show and I came to Tucson, and here's where my life changed. When I got to Tucson, I met a girlfriend who had a cousin who had an MS over here in St. Mary's Hospital. Jesus came to me and said, let's go to the hospital. So when I got to the hospital, I was informed that the girl had MS very badly, that she was 89 pounds at 5'9", and they'd given her about 3 weeks to live. Jesus simply touched her on the head, and then we left the hospital, and then she actually did walk out of the hospital in about a week, and she continues to live to this day as far as I know. So it went from that to handling harder and harder and harder cases. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
oh, that's phenomenal. Now, hey, when you were in that place of learning, and there were 2 million people or entities there, did they all look like us, or were there different forms and shapes of the from other planets and so on? Did they maintain their form from where they came, or did they all take a humanoid form?
no, they were pretty much in the form that they would be in a body. So very much alien in many ways, some of them.
Mm-hmm.
I was surprised, however, that most of them, I would say, were human-esque looking.
Yeah.
Just in different configuration probably is the best way to describe that.
Yeah. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all, because that's the common form. And there's other forms too, but that's the most commonly seen form out there. So and now you, after this experience, you are clear, what is it called, clear audience? You hear people talking to you.
No, actually what happens is I do not have what's called a veil.
Oh yeah.
When to put this forward so you can understand the session, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
A person comes to the session, I'm making notes. I'm also a psychologist, so I have some background in that field. So I make my notes, and then when we put the individual on the table, because I use a massage table, I will stand on one side of the table, and a holy entity such as Mary, Buddha, Kuan Yin, etc., will stand on the other side of the table, and they actually do the work completely independent of me. The only reason I touch anyone is to just ground their body so that when they sit up, they're not dizzy / nauseated or any of those kind of negative, outcomes. And then what ends up happening is let's say it's cancer. I've had 1,500 cancer patients. I think we recently looked at our count, and we're somewhere around maybe 45,000 clients and 41 years. I used to do a lot of groups, and that's how we, ended up doing that number.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'm also a public speaker on the subject of, healing. And the way it works with me is when the light goes into a person's body where there's cancer, let's say, it will actually physically push out the cancer cells and repair the whole area. So that's how it works, with our work. And our track record's been about 95% with my clients. And I don't want to forget this. If anybody wants to take a look at the website, that's adam-healer.com. I'll say it again, that's adam-healer.com. There's a phone number for that site, and it's area code 520-249-9332. I've been doing a lot of these speeches and talks lately, and hopefully I'm finally getting better at this.
Okay. Well, you sound all right so far. For those of you that did not get your paper and your pen out, we will repeat those numbers and the website again. So just hang loose, and you will have it again. Now, I'm totally fascinated with what happened on the other side of the veil. And that near-death experience that you have, it appears to me as it lasted a long time, if we can use time, the term there, on the other side. But when you came back, you were brought back to about the same time that you were in the hospital. So sound like you were there for days on the other side, or was it even longer?
So this is pretty interesting, because even though I went to this universal college, which, by the way, was a real brick and mortar college like you would see on the earth. I was there 2 weeks, as far as I could tell. And when I had come back, I had been only passed on for 4.5 minutes.
Well, you know what? That makes perfect sense to me, knowing that in the physical, we are strapped down by the fourth dimension, which is time. But outside of that, time and space does not exist as we know it, especially when you get up into those realms of the sixth or the seventh dimension where you probably were. Then time does not exist. So whatever you go through is at the will of the mind that is experiencing it, or someone that was guiding you through this thing, so that they could bring you back to the time 4.5 minutes away. That's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it was obvious to me that in my experience, it was Jesus and Mary. And what's even more interesting is, even though, I was brought up as a Methodist, in my lifetime, I was too busy skating. I wasn't religious at all. And I just had a basis, in Christianity, but I wasn't any kind of person that went to church regularly at all. So it just happened to be, I would say, my experience.
Yeah, and when you were there for 2 weeks, you went through this education process, and that probably goes back to the mastermind principle, when you had all these people there you were absorbing the same information they did, so you learned and you were able to draw on that information that you got and bring it back with you. So are you consciously using some of that, or are you actually kind of doing it and it happens automatically as maybe unconsciously healing or what they were teaching you?
You know, what's really interesting is I do remember being there for the 2 weeks, and I have absolutely no idea what I learned.
Oh, really?
No. And, you know, we can say then that unconsciously, like you were mentioning, I would say that I'm doing it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But however, over the last, and I feel like I need to say this. So between 77 and just recently, within the last couple of years, I was not public at all. Even though I went to some very powerful groups and I could have written a book a long time ago and all of that stuff, I did not choose. And by the way, I'm in the middle of writing a book called The Least Likely Healer. And I know nobody knows why that's titled that way, but you know, I'm a car guy. I have tattoos. I'm just a regular person. I'm not, you know, out there at all. If you were to meet me at a car show, you know, because we do all the big car shows. We have a Corvette and we have, you know, a hot rod station wagon. I mean, people don't know I do this job at all outside of when I'm actually doing the job. I don't feel that it takes to be anything, you know, unusual in the world in order to do my job. I'm just me.
Yeah, yeah. And I see that we're down to the bottom of the hour here, so we got to take about a 3 or so minute break. And then we will be back talking with Adam Miller, the healer, again. And also towards the end of the show, we would love to take some calls from some of you. If you have an issue with your body, with your mind, or need any healing at all, call in and ask some questions about maybe what can be done. The phone number there, for those that you were foresighted enough to get a pen out, is 202-559-7943. And we will be back in about 3 minutes or so. Thank you.
I feel like Dick.
Open Eyes Network now airs a live simulcast on YouTube. Our YouTube channel, youtube.com/c/Open Eyes Network, features not just our live content, but other videos as well, and is always active. So now you can tune in many different ways. Open Eyes Network shows air Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time live. Be sure to visit OpenEyesNetwork.com to find easy-to-use links to get to all of the places that you want to listen to our shows. And don't forget, all of our shows will now be archived as well on YouTube.
There is a better radio show, beyond that which is known to the people. It is a radio show more informative than others, and as timeless as infinity. It is the equilibrium between light and dark, between the sheeple and the paranormal, and it is heard at the base of man's ignorance and at the summit of his knowledge. This is the radio show of imagination, a show we call The Secret Teachings.
Open Eyes is dedicated to finding the truth in all matters. We are not afraid to be politically incorrect or to ask questions. Whether it is the paranormal, government cover-ups, the dark agenda that the puppet masters have in store for us, or aliens and UFOs, nothing remains hidden. Listen to Open Eyes, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on LateNightInTheMidlands.com or OpenEyesNetwork.com. Open hearts, open minds, open eyes. Ben Franklin said, "If you do the same thing tomorrow as you did today, you're going to get the same tomorrow as you got today." Changing the world starts with you, and changing you starts with changing the way you think. Late Night in the Midlands can help. Listen to all of our shows at LateNightInTheMidlands.com, because things really do need to change.
And hello, we are back with the Universal Consciousness Show, and we are talking with Adam Miller, the healer right here in Tucson, kind of almost right up the road from me. So we have been talking about his incredible story. And since if you joined us late here, he died, and he have an incredible story here that if you haven't heard it, you got to go back and listen to it again, because this is good. And he became a healer, and he can do some of the things that we only dream about being able to do. So I want to also say a little bit later on here, give it another 5 or 10 minutes, and maybe we could take some calls. And the phone number there is 202-559-7943. And now Adam is still with us here. So before we go any further, would you give them maybe your phone number also, where they can reach you, as well as your website again, so they can write that down? You know, those people that didn't get the pen out right in time?
Yeah, sir, I can do that. So the phone number is 520-249-9332, and that's adam-healer.com. So that's my communication skills, and there they are.
All right, that sounds good. Now, we've heard your story in the first half of the show here, and now let me ask you, what kind of cases do you work on? Is it maybe physical, mental, or all the way up to the more severe cases of illness, or all the way down to hangnails? What do you actually work on?
So currently, we are working on a man with severe Alzheimer's. We are working on a woman who has most of her face eaten off by skin cancer. And we are working on parasitical issues in another man's stomach that he's had for about 45 years. And, you know, that's some of the cases we're doing. I am adding something else to the work, Aage. So what I've been adding is the most important part of it, I believe. So lately, the very same people that are coming to become physically well are also learning how to bring, you know, spirit through themselves. And I'm actually giving classes on how to be a universal enlightened student. I feel like that is just as important, and more important, I believe, because then what ends up happening, you know, or I should take us back a little bit. So I used to get people with some, you know, terrible disease, and, you know, we can take care of that. The problem is they would come a few months later and they would have something completely different. Then we have to fix that, because they weren't taking care of the source of you know, what their true issues were, be it abuse or, you know, be it some kind of trauma, no matter what it was. These days, we are taking care of the traumas and the abuses and all these other things, and we're also teaching our people how to become students of light, in which they can maintain their own power and heal themselves, not just have to go to see someone. You know what I mean? And that that really that puts it on another level.
Yeah, I see we have, it looks like we have a caller in here, but I have one question first, and maybe we can get to the caller afterwards. When somebody need a healing, is it very important in the mix of it all that they actually believe that it's going to work, or is it kind of like we have to do our part? Maybe just quit watching cat videos and horror movies and stuff, and let's start, concentrating on our health. Is that necessary, or could it happen even if we do not believe that it's possible?
Well, the thing with my work and what makes my work different, I would say, is that when a holy entity comes in to work with any person, they work from the spirit out. So it doesn't make any difference what the person believes consciously. I mean, for instance, the man with Alzheimer's I'm working with, he's actually an atheist, and it doesn't make any difference with him. I mean, he started with me because he had severe back problems initially, and we completely took care of all of that. Now we're working on his Alzheimer's and getting a result with that. So no, it doesn't make any difference, at least with my work, what somebody believes. I also do get hired by the families of the sick person, and a lot of times I'll walk in, and I've gone into hospitals where I've gotten a milk carton thrown at me because, the person thought I was a voodoo guy or whatever. And, once we get past that, then we can get into the work, and we usually do well. So the answer is no. Maybe 20% of my clients don't believe it at all.
That's new, actually. That's where, well, then again, I guess you are having some spiritual help where maybe others may not. That's possible. And do we have a caller here?
Yes, we do.
All right. Are you there, caller?
I am.
Hey, yeah, this is Aage here with Adam Miller, and hey, you got a question for him?
Well, yes. I have a condition. I was wondering if he might like to give it a go.
Go ahead, sir.
Back in the early 80s, as an activist, I was foolish enough to become a medical guinea pig. And I was poisoned for that effort. I know this to be so. No need to explain that. But I have for 30 years some great discomfort in my lower chakra, the base chakra.
Mm-hmm. And so what that would require is you would have to actually come see me personally for that issue.
Of course. That would make some sense.
And that is not a problem. I've worked on many people with similar type of issues, not that exact one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems that some sort of blocking of a chakra, it seemed to me somehow. And it was something that this large firm did intentionally to an activist, and I have some understanding of that. And I'll explain that to you when we next get together, I guess. And, so I'll be off then. Thank you.
I really appreciate you calling. Thank you.
Welcome. Bye-bye.
Hey, thank you.
Bye.
Yeah. There is not only physical, there is also etheric or mental, not illness, but damage that can be repaired too, isn't it?
Yeah, because I'm trained in psychology, I worked in the mainstream for a long time as that. And I feel like, you have to repair the body, mind, and spirit. It takes an awful lot of work to be able to take care of all the issues that any individual has, because humans are very, very complex. I do want to mention this, that I also work on animals, and I love to work on animals because, Aage, they have no mind in the way, so when you work on them, they usually get well fairly fast.
Yeah, and they don't really have a way to tell you where it hurts most of the time. So when you're transferring the energy, it goes to where it is needed. Is that maybe the way it works?
In my case, most of the people that bring their animals, they've already been diagnosed with something exactly.
Mm.
So when I work on them, I know where to go and what we're going to be doing exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It's
So
very precise.
Yeah, you do most of the work in person, or do you work on the telephone and Skype too for anywhere?
Yeah, I seem to be working on Skype more and more because, you know, our outreach has been a lot bigger lately.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I can't reach everybody, obviously, in person. Otherwise, I'd be working, you know, 100 hours a day.
Yeah.
And so we do work on Skype when we can.
Mm-hmm. So you could work from, I mean, with anybody, anywhere in the world then, technically.
I've pretty much worked in every country so far.
Yeah.
And it's gone very well. I mean, obviously, over Skype, it's a limited amount of subjects and problems that we can cover.
For something like that, at a distance, are there any limitations to distance healing as it would be maybe to in person?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to, you know, try to handle stage 4 cancer or other severe type of illnesses that way.
Mm. Yeah, I can understand that.
It would have to be in person.
Yeah. How, because of what you do, have you gotten any flack from the allopathic medical system?
No, as a matter of fact, the Alzheimer's patient I was telling you about is a rather famous surgeon.
Mm.
And his wife is a pretty well-known psychologist here in Arizona. And I work on a lot of RN nurses, and I work on a lot of practitioners, acupuncturists, acupressurists, massage therapists. I also work on, I have an anesthetician I'm working with, and all kinds of other people. So I do have some doctors that will refer, you know, their clients to me because they trust me, they've known me a long time, and they'll give me the, you know, patients that are very difficult, that are either in chronic pain or have been diagnosed with some kind of deadly disease. So no, I don't have any issues at all with AMA or other types of mainstream medical practitioners whatsoever.
That's good. That's good. I know there's a lot of people that do. So, you know, once you start doing great things, then you get looked at sometimes, and a lot of other people do have problems. So maybe you have some protection that maybe others do not have. Do you think?
No, I don't think I have any protection. I do think that I have education.
Yeah.
And I think that I have a lot of experience in this, my 41st year. I'm actually the longest running person in the United States of my profession. So, I mean, people have known me a very, very long time, and I have a good, you know, really good track record.
Mm-hmm. What about something like if somebody have a broken bone? Is there a way that, you know, bones that they take a while to heal? Can it be accelerated by maybe some of the things that you do?
So I'll give you, for instance, of a client that I have currently, and she's been my client for a while. She was on a parasail in Mexico, and the parasail went up in the air, off the water, and took a straight dive down about 100 feet, straight into the sand, going about 40, and
Oof.
completely ripped her foot off the bone totally. So when I started with her, and that's been several years ago, and she's come to see me periodically, we started with the foot was just hanging by the tendon, basically. And so we've repaired all that soft tissue and the bone over the last, several years.
So it's grown back together then?
Yeah, it has. And, she would be happy to tell anybody that. Her name is Robin, actually. And if you go to the website, she is one of the testimonials on there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was looking at that. I recommend for people to go to the website and especially watch those short videos. They were very good videos. They're short, 3-4 minutes. One of them, I think, is 5 minutes, and very educational. And there's some good testimonies there. So have a look at it. That's very good. And also, I know you are a healer. You're not a psychic, so they can't really expect to get weird. I mean, if they lose their keys, they shouldn't really come and look at you, should they?
Well, the psychic realm doesn't have anything to do with myself or my work whatsoever. And you're right. If they want to, see a psychic individual, they need to go see them for that reason. The people that come to see me are because they are ill mentally, emotionally, physically, or sometimes they're ill spiritually. Occasionally I get people, for instance, and I'm glad you brought that up. I get people, for instance, that have a curse on them, or they've come into contact with something evil, and it can be very, very destructive, and it can kill them if, unchecked. So I've worked on many, many people that have had those issues and cleared it up for them.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. Now, if there's anybody else out there that want to call us, you can call us at 202-559-7943. And I remember also that you said something when we were out having dinner that you had an interesting experience in India at a temple.
Yeah, that was not in India. It was in Japan.
Japan, okay.
And I was skating in a figure skating show, and I was only maybe 22 years old, and I was, you might call it, wandering around in the wrong place, and I ended up in a Buddhist temple there, and wandered into the back of the temple, and I saw a figure there in the back, and once I got very close to him, I realized that he was floating off the ground.
Ooh.
And so that was very startling, and he must have realized I was there because he did a very interesting thing. He put one leg down and then the other leg down, which is very interesting. And when he came into consciousness, he asked me who I was, and I told him who I was, and he said, well, you're not supposed to be in here. However, he said, you died. He told me, he said, you died. And I said, yes, I did. And he said, well, you will be doing things later in your life that have something to do with that. And then he actually grabbed me by the ear and hauled my butt out of there. So I was not supposed to be in there.
Oh, really?
But a really interesting thing happened the next day. So the next day it really bothered me. I was like, I need to go talk to him. He's amazing. And so I went back to the temple, and there was a Buddhist priest actually standing at the foot of the stairs when I got there. And so I asked him, I said, well, where is this man that I had seen? And so he asked me to describe the man to him. And when I described the man to him, he laughed. And I said, well, why are you laughing? He said, well, that was the founder of our temple over 1,000 years ago. So I realized that I was not talking to a physical person, even though he did haul me out of there by my ear. So, it was a very interesting thing, and I've often thought about that throughout my life, and I think it's one of the reasons why I've become what I am now.
Yeah, well, you've had some phenomenal experiences, and now you're writing that book. Do you have any thing you want to say about what's going to be in it? The least likely healer. I imagine you will write about, or you definitely need to write about that story that you told us, and then maybe would there be advice in there, mostly history, or what do you want to write about in there?
The book is actually not about healing. The book is about my entire life. So
Okay.
it's actually going to start with my birth through my skating career, and then into the healing work, psychology, etc., and into the present day. So I mean, it's a rather long chronicle, if you will, about pretty much everything that happened. And there was a lot of really, really intense things that happened to me that are pretty rough. So I think that it's important that people understand that I didn't just get this way. It took a lot of really, really hard work, and a lot of really rough things happened to have me get where I am.
Well, I'm totally convinced that had it not been for your near-death experiences, or I want to take away the word near, because you died. There was nothing near there. So had it not been for that experience, I think you never would have been where you are today.
I do believe that. I'm pretty sure I would have just stayed in figure skating as a coach, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Yeah, well, that would have been interesting too.
I feel like that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it didn't go that way.
Yeah. And we're getting towards the end here. So mention your website one more time, and then maybe your phone number also. And if you want to throw an email in there, that would be good.
Yeah, the website is adam-healer.com. And the phone number is area code 520, and the number is 249-9332. And actually, there's not really a email.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's good enough. And I would recommend very much that they study the website, because here I know enough about you. I know what you're doing, and I know it works. And we met and had some long talks. So I would say that if I get a problem, I'm going to come and see you. Of course, I'm one of those lucky people that has never been sick in my life. So hopefully I won't have to see you for that reason.
Yeah, and you're most certainly educated, so you don't have to see me for that reason either.
Yeah, that could be. That could be. And I know that when people go to your website and study that a little bit, read it all, because there are pearls in there about what can be done. And because what happened to other people can also happen to you. So what you have heard today here should open up the mind a little bit. And I would say once the mind is open, it's just like a parachute, then it works. If a parachute doesn't open, it's no good for you. So keep that in mind. And we are down to the end of the show. So we will thank you very much, Adam, for being with us. And I would love to have you back again, maybe in the near future, so we can maybe do some other discussion about other things that we didn't talk about.
Yeah, that would be great. And I feel very privileged to be able to talk about the work and experience this wonderful show today. Thank you so much, Aage.
You betcha. We will do it again. And then we're down now, so to the end of the show, and we will be back next week with the Universal Consciousness Show again. Until then, take care of yourself. Goodbye.